All right, guys, what we're talking about today is we are going to be talking solving systems by substitution. Our inspirational quote today: if you win, good, but if you lose, okay, but never ever give up. That's the key. When we're talking about systems, remember systems is where I have two problems in one, so it double the work in one problem, which kind of sucks. But we had those issues. Hopefully, you guys saw. I gave you guys a couple of those do nows where we tried to solve by graphing, and sometimes those graphings didn't come out nice, right? We would kind of graph, especially if I don't have graph paper and I'm trying to do it like this, and I have this line here, and then all of a sudden where they cross is kind of in between, and I really can't find an exact answer unless I'm using like a Desmos or something like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to introduce the first method of being able to solve systems. Okay, and it's going to be by substitution. This method always works. Sometimes it gets a little bit more complicated than than the other methods. It is a little bit longer, but this method will always give me an exact answer. Okay, and there's times that you want to use this method, and then there's times that we're going to teach you another method that you want to use that method. So it kind of just depends on what your problem is giving you. So understand that solving with substitution, what we're trying to do with substitution is we're trying to get rid of one of the variables. Because what sucks about these problems right here is I have two problems in one, and each one has an x and a y. I can't really do anything when I have two variables with an x and a y, but if I had just regular one variable, then I'm able to solve that for that variable. So right here, if you take a look, I have 2x minus 5y equals negative 22. There's no way that I can solve for x because I have that stinking y. So what we're going to try to do with substitution is we're going to try to get rid of one of the variables. All right. And so this problem right here, it's already done for you. You can look at it. I'll do two more problems so you can see it. But really what we're trying to do, guys, with substitution is we're trying to solve one of the equations, just one of the equations, for one of the variables. All right. And then once I do that, then I'm able to replace that other variable in the other problem to get rid of that variable. Okay, so hopefully this kind of makes sense. What we want to do here, and this, like I said, this one's already done for you. I'm going to come over here and kind of do it over here so you guys can see, okay, how we're doing it. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to make sure you look. Most of the time with these, I kind of do it like an A and a B. You don't have to. I'm just going to do an A, B to make this a little bit easier for me explaining. So we're going to look at equation A, and I noticed looking at equation A, the whole point is trying to get a variable by itself. Well, if we notice right away, on this one, the y is already by itself. So this is a great opportunity to use the substitution problem because we already have a variable by itself. We know what y is, and we can say, hey, y is negative 2x minus 20. So what we're going to do here is understand that y is negative 2x minus 20. So anytime I see a y, even though it's big, I have to understand that y is equal to negative 2x minus 20. So what I do is I like to put parentheses around this, okay? And I now know, oh, look, using the equation A, what I'm going to do is I get what y is negative 2x minus 20. So now I'm going to look down at equation B and I realize, oh, look, there's a y right there. What that y is, well, I know what y is. It says it right here. Y is negative 2x minus 20. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, what I have solved for here, which is already solved, and I'm going to substitute that in for y. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite B. B is going to stay the same. I'm going to get negative 6x plus 8. But instead of writing y, I now know that y is negative 2x minus 20. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this y with what we know it is. It's negative 2x minus 20. Okay, and then I'm going to continue equals negative 6. Well, why do I do that? Because now I'm going from this problem that has two variables into it to now I get this problem, which does look a little bit longer, but I notice that now I have only one variable. And so since I have only one variable, I am now able to solve that. So I can use my 6 steps for solving. To do that, I'm going to take the number out front and distribute it. Okay, bring down this. I'm going to get negative 6x. 8 times negative 2 is negative 16x. 8 times negative 20 is negative 160. Okay. And so this is really just step 2. We already plugged it in. Now what we're going to do is we're going to solve. okay, for that one variable. All right, so that's what we're doing. We're just solving for that one variable. So now I can combine like terms here. Okay, so negative 6x minus 16x is negative 22x. Sorry about that. Negative 22x minus 160 equals negative 6. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve for x. So I'm going to add 160 to both sides. And I get negative 22x equals 160 minus 6 is negative 154. And then what I'm going to do is, last but not least, I'm going to detach this by dividing by negative 22. And I get x equals, and we can just type it in. I love calculators, so use calculators anytime you get it. Okay, so we're going to go 154 divided by 22. Right? And I get an answer of 7. Okay. So now what I know is that my x value is 7. So now here's where it gets critical. And what I try to do is, since I used a to find y, what I'm going to now do is I now know what x is. So now that I know what x is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one of these equations that I started with. Don't plug it in here. This is the biggest mistake that people make, is they want to plug it in there. No, we don't want to plug it in there. Don't go. Make sure you go back to the original. So if you made any changes, go back to the original. And now, once again, we're going to use substitution again. I now know what x is. So x is now going to be replaced. So now I'm going to come back up to my first equation. I'm going to use the top equation just because I feel like it's easier, because y is already by itself. You could use the bottom one. It's going to be a little bit more work. But all I'm going to do is, now I know, oh, wait a second. I know what x is. X is 7. So now what I do is I must go back and replace it into one of my original equations. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite a. A is y equals negative 2x minus 20. And now I know, hey, x is 7. So now what I know is, hey, instead of writing this x, I'm going to write it, because I know what it is. X is now 7. So I'm going to replace that x with 7. And then I'm going to solve. So now I get negative 2 times 7. That's negative 14 minus 20. Negative 14 minus 20. And I screwed up. Sorry, guys. I don't want to have to remake the whole video. I screwed up. My fault. Right here, I made a mistake right here. This should have been a positive 154, which would have made this a negative 7. So I apologize. I do make mistakes. I don't want to have to make a whole new video about it. So please follow. That's where I made the mistake at. I apologize for that. Okay, so now I get a negative 2 times negative 7. So that's going to be positive 14. I apologize for that, guys. And then 14 minus 20 is going to be negative 6. So now I know the answer. So and now make sure you understand, you must write this as a coordinate, because this is where they cross at. Okay. And we get x equals negative 7 and y is negative 6. Okay. So if you want to understand, right, we've been teaching it by graphing. So now if I were to graph this, and I'm just going to type it into decimals real fast just to make life a little bit easier on us. Okay, so I'm going to take this problem, y equals negative 2x minus 20, y equals negative 2x minus 20, and I'm going to type in negative 6x plus 8y, negative 6x plus 8y equals negative 6. If I were to graph those, then remember the solution where they cross at would be my answer. And there it is right there, negative 7, negative 6. So if I were to graph this, then I would get it. But the problem becomes, once again, is sometimes you're going to get ugly numbers. So we do substitution more than graphing. All right, but that's exactly what I got there. So hopefully you guys can see that I'm pretty much doing the same thing. I'm just solving it a different way. Okay, and that's what's crazy about math. Now, let me jump in. We're going to do a little bit of a harder problem. Okay, and then we'll be done. So once again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump in here and call it A and B. I'm going to look right away to see if any of the variables are solved for each other. So there's my x, there's my y. Nope, nothing's nice. Nothing's by itself. Same thing with b, negative x plus y. So this isn't a nice one for substitution. That's okay. We're still going to use substitution. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have to get a variable by itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look here, and I'm going to look at what variable is going to be the easiest to get by itself. To do that, guys, it's pretty simple. Just look, this x has a number in front, this y has a number in front, this x has a negative in front, this y has nothing. So what I do is I always look through, try to find the easiest one. This y doesn't have really anything attached to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that y by itself. So now I'm going to use the b equation here, and I'm going to solve for y. Why am I going to solve for y? Because y is pretty easy to solve for. Okay, it doesn't matter. You could use a and you could solve for x if you wanted to. It really doesn't matter. Okay, I'm just trying to find the easiest one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this over here, and now I'm going to solve for y. Remember, to solve for y, guys, all I ever do is I just circle the variable that I'm solving for. This tells me I have to now get rid of that negative x. So to get rid of that negative x or negative 1x, I'm going to add 1x to both sides. These cancel out, and I'm left with y equals. And then remember, these cannot combine, so I'm just going to go 1x minus 2. Why do I do that? Because now I know that the y is by itself, so now I know what y is. Y is 1x minus 2. So if I use b to get my answer, then I must use a to plug it in. So now I'm going to go back to a, which is negative or 6x minus 7. But now instead of putting the y, I now know what y is. Y is 1x minus 2. So I'm going to plug in 1x minus 2 right there. Okay? So once again, why did I do that? I do not plug it back into the problem that we just had, okay, that we just used, because it'll cancel everything out. So make sure you use the other one that we didn't use. And then now we're going to solve for x. And we're able to solve for x now because that's all we have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this negative 7 and distribute it. So I'm going to have 6x minus 7x plus 14 equals 18. Okay. I'm going to combine like terms right there. So these are like terms. I'm going to combine them. 6x minus 7x is negative 1x plus 14 equals 18. Solve for x by subtracting 14. And I get negative 1x equals 4. Divide both sides by negative 1. And now I get an answer of x equals negative 4. All right. So once I have this, I can now know what x is. So now I can either plug it in, and please don't use this equation. I mean, you can, but the only problem that I have with using this is if you made a mistake somewhere here, okay, then it makes it a little bit harder, and you could get a wrong answer. But I guess you could plug it in. It really doesn't matter. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take either the top or the bottom and plug it in. I'm probably going to plug it into B just because it looks a little bit easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write out B. So there we go. And then what I'm going to now do is I now know what x is. X is negative 4, so I'm going to replace that. So I'm going to get negative 4 plus y equals negative 2. The negative and negative becomes a positive. And then I'm going to solve for y. By subtracting 4 to both sides. Okay, and I get y equals negative 6. Okay, and then once here, guys, we now know my my point where they cross is going to be negative 4, negative 6. All right, so hopefully you guys understand. Well, yes, you could, just so you know, you could plug that in here, which would make things a little bit easier. You would get negative 4 minus 2, which is negative 6. It doesn't really matter. I just like plugging it back into the original just in case I made a mistake someplace. All right. So that's really what the substitution is. If you have any questions, make sure you shoot me an email or anything.